said this 4 years ago. One of the great things about the fraternity was the fact it taught you how, just by living it, how stupid discrimination was. When you met for African American members like Frank Starkey or Jess Liscombe, who I think retired a few years ago as a medical doctor. I think he spent 30 years in the Navy. You would think, how in the world could someone not want these people to be members? And John's older brother, Pete, who was a member of the class of '65, and all of that was like, well, yeah, that's just the way we are. I had a Remington Quiet Writer, a manual typewriter. It turns out I was one of the few people in the fraternity who had a typewriter. So our freshmen, after our class was being, were going to be initiated and become members, well, TKE International has this membership card you had to fill out, and Bill Barnett, the secretary, asked me to type out the cards for him. And it came to the section of the card where it said race. And of course, TKE has never had a race clause. And so I said, well, gee, Bill, what should I put down here? And he said, well, American. And that just seemed, what other answer could there be? You're here. No hyphens, no hyphens.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that as David said in his opening remarks, that one of the key members and leaders in that whole movement of the recharting was Bob Hamilton, class of '64. Bob was going to be joining us here this week, but then apparently some health issues have developed, and he's unfortunately not going to make it. For those who don't know Bob Hamilton or the history, Bob was a member of Phi Gamma Delta, and had decided, because he could not bring integration at that time to that fraternity, that he wanted to join another fraternity, start another one for that purpose. So Bob has a very interesting history. He was the outstanding freshman of his class. He competed 3 times in the Baldwin Oratorical, winning it his senior year, and the gentleman who came in second was David Kendall. So obviously he was a very good Bob went on to Duke Law School and even clerked for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco for about 4 years. And I was really intrigued because I wanted to ask him how this career change came about, because it was in either 1970 or 71 he decided he would become a scriptwriter, and he went to Los Angeles and spent 30 years writing scripts for television shows and TV movies. Won an Emmy, I believe, during the course of his career. He's now retired and living in Vermont. But
well, I'd have to add that Bob was technically a member of the first pledge class, because before he could join TKE, he had to arrange to get out of Phi Gamma Delta, and that took a while, but that was accomplished in time for him to be initiated into our class. But well, I wore a pledge pin. I don't think we could ever. No one ever regarded Bob as a pledge.
And I apologize to you all. I was chosen as a replacement for Bob.
One question I wanted to ask all 3 of you, because as I was looking back through the archives in this, the thing that struck me, impressed me the most, was how quickly you got this accomplished. Because it looks like Bob and yourselves started this in January, February of 1962, and by May of that year, the chapter is being installed. I mean, go into the work that went into that to get that done so quickly.
You know, I think it was just the it's an idea that was a winning idea, so when we approached people, I don't think we got anybody who said no, you know? And we were looking for the best men that we could find, you know? Athletes, good academically, and so we just, you know, nobody said no. They were all willing to make that commitment and work for it. Is that the way you find it that way?
Well, I think so. I mean, it just rang the right chimes for me. There wasn't anything to be said about the other 8 that would distinguish one from another, in my opinion. My dad had been a Dell, so what? You know, and, but this had a reason. It corrected a problem. It gave one an opportunity to make a real contribution, you know. It would have happened eventually, but at least we didn't go through the struggles that some of the other colleges and universities did, in which it was imposed from above. You know, we did. And that was always the thing that I liked about it, that opportunity.
One of the, I think I want to add one more thing, of course, that was unique to TKE at that time, was the fact, of course, because it was formed by independents, it banned hazing, and fraternity hazing in those days, well, I don't know, Animal House really doesn't do it terribly, it's not terribly unfair, but I mean, we used to have, you know, bring our pledges out in front of Kane House, and we were there in '64, I know it was after you, Dave, after you graduated, still they could hear the noises coming from the other fraternity houses as they had lineups in the early morning hours, and various and sundry forms of exercise and personal abuse that was commonplace.
And let me pick up on that, because I ended up as the first pledge trainer. Now, we didn't have any experience in how to do this stuff. Pardon my language, but there should be no horseshit.
And that was the common phrase used for pledge training in
Yeah.
those days. That word would precede pledge training.
So I, with others, you know, we had to think about, well, what do we do during so-called Hell Week? And, you know, we tried to do constructive things around the house and so forth. And there were only 4 or 5 actives that were overseeing this. David, I think you were there, and I was there and so forth. And to show how terrifying we were, each pledge was given a number that they had to memorize, and then a phrase of some kind, and I forget why the phrase was there. But the number was there because it contained within it their particular peak number, okay? And so the rule was that when any active called upon you, blossom, number. Found out, if it wasn't right, give us 5, 10, 50. So one time, blossom, number. He's on the floor already, and he says, "Oh, you 812, sir." Scared to death, weren't you? I mean,
right.
all the actors had to leave the room. We were just cracking up.
But let me ask you this, when you were going through that organization process in the spring of '62, where were you holding your meetings? And as you were gathering people together to petition for the colony status?
You know, I think we took them up to our room. And the suite, we got up to that suite on the 4th floor of Martindale, was where we brought people to talk to them, you know. And I don't know really where we held, when we finally got together, where we held meetings. Because of course in that spring semester, we didn't have a house.
We had a room, we did.
We did for a little time.
Did we get a house?
Right by the railroad tracks. I slept there for a while on the top bunk. First time that whistle blew on the train, I kept my head on the rafter. Boom! What is this? That's the last time I slept there, or I just learned to live through the whistle. But
Can you talk a little bit about the cooperation and assistance that Wabash College gave to its students trying to form this new fraternity?
Well, Wabash, of course, was very interested in us being successful. And so they helped us out in every way that they could. But I think they still realized that it was up to us students to really build a successful organization. So Roger may know more about this than I do because they probably helped us with housing. But I noticed in the VATFR it said that Professor Wilder was our advisor, and maybe he was there at the beginning, but we also had Dr. Eric Dean, who became our advisor. And this man was one of the most wonderful men you ever want to meet. I mean, he was very calm, he was very logical, he was very comforting, and he helped us out tremendously.
No one, those of you who don't know me, is professor of philosophy and religion, and they used to give, we used to have church, I don't know if they still do, but actually had non-denominational church services on Sunday morning, and he and Professor Peebles would preach, and you know, I didn't know any better. I would go to church on Sunday, and the Glee Club would sing, and I never heard him give an irrelevant sermon, which is most of that. But no, he was one, and in his very British accent. But no, he had an acerbic wit too.
I took a class of his. We had to take a religion class. That was because a woman many years ago had given $100 for that requirement. I think they spent the 100, but the requirement remained. So Wabash began to define religion very broadly. Philosophy became religion, which meant you could take symbolic logic as a religion course. But I chose non-Christian religions, which was taught by Eric King. And he created an atmosphere in there. I was hardcore Division I. I didn't think I can when I was Division II, Division III. But that was one of the most interesting classes I've took. And so we had discussions, and here I am, I'm a chemistry major, you know, somebody else is poli-sci, stuff like that. And I remember once I brought up, we're talking about the warring states in China, and Confucius and so on. And I brought up the concept of entropy. That it was easier to disorder order than it was to order disorder. And that developed into a discussion about where that civilization was at that time, and picked up by everybody. You know, I mean, it was just interesting how he was able to, and other students, you know, we integrated ourselves and took the ideas from the various areas and could run with them. And actually, it led to the paper I had to write for that class. But it was his guidance and gentle prodding and so forth that would take us into interesting areas. He was just excellent at that.
So when the chapter was rechartered and the installation occurred in May, there was 33, I believe, was the number in that vicinity. And then Ken's pledge class came in that fall, so that would have brought population what, into the 40s?
In the mid-upper 40s. And of course, in those days, I guess this doesn't happen today, but we always had a meaningful second semester pledge class. And for example, I think Jerry was actually a member of their second semester pledge class, and we would always pick up 3 or 4, sometimes more. Well, actually, Rich Cawthon was second semester pledge as well. So guys the second semester of each year. I gather that currently that's very unusual to have second semester pledges now, but at least as far as we were concerned, that was very common. I mean, we weren't I don't think we were the greatest salespeople or rushers in the world when it, after the success of our founders getting 33 members with no rejections.
We were just too honest.
Yeah, well, we didn't realize that you actually had to go out and corral people and bring them in. They didn't like come walking in the door and say, please pin on the pledge pin. There actually was work involved in finding them, and they took us. I just remember because we won the scholarship trophy the end of our in the spring of '63, and in the fall of